Our long Minnesotan nightmare is over, or at least it should be soon. On Thursday morning, the Pohlad family announced their intentions to sell the Minnesota Twins. What does it mean? How much can or should we celebrate? Let's talk about it. This is Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello again, and welcome back to Locked On Twins. I'm your host, Brandon Warren. You can unfollow me on the tweets at Brandon_WARNE. Thanks for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, and of course, as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, we're your team every day. This is a special Locked On Twins live, as there's some news, some big things popping, as the Pohlad family announces their intention to sell the Minnesota Twins. Before we get into that, let me introduce you to my cohort, my co-host, my companion, Mr. Dave Brown at Answer Dave Brown on the tweets. He's been writing about ball since 98. He's been in the BBWAA since 2012 and a Hall of Fame voter since he got the chance to usher Joe Mauer into the hallowed halls of Cooperstown. With all that said, Dave, what's up?
Well, it's a big day in Minnesota Twins history, Brandon, and I'm not sure all what it means yet, but it's what a lot of people on Twitter have been asking for, the Pohlads to sell the team. Who knows what we're going to get, though. So it's I'm reserving total judgment, but I certainly have a lot of opening thoughts, and I'm eager to get to them with you.
Yes, of course. And by the way, today's episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah, the right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today. Yeah, so I'm not sure who gets credit for breaking the story. I think it's Phil Miller of the Minnesota Star Tribune. Got to make sure we get the right one there. That the Twins have begun the process of seeking buyers for the franchise. A franchise bought 40 years ago by Carl Pohlad for many fewer dollars than is going to go for now. I'll try to figure out the math here while we're on the air for the amount of exponential growth that the franchise has put together. But first of all, opening thoughts. What is your general feeling toward the Pohlad selling? Because I know a lot of fans are whooping it up like Arsenio Hall in 1992. And as much as I think it's a good thing, it may not be universally good.
No, it might not necessarily be good at all, because the devil versus, and I just kind of call the Pohlads the devils. Maybe that's one reason why they're selling. They're tired of people like me going on social media calling them bad. My first thought actually was about this season, and it kind of made me upset that they didn't spend any more short-term money on making this team as viable for a World Series as I think they were, as I think they could have been. But again, water under the bridge. Let's just complain about that more. My second thought, more of an overarching thought about the Pohlads, is it's really too bad, because they should be the ideal owners for a team like the Twins. A family of generational wealth, multifaceted business. How good they are at those businesses, I'm not sure. But they make money from different things. It's not just about the Twins, which was what the Calvin Griffith deal was, and why Carl Pohlad bought the team, was able to, for I think $44 million in 1984.
Yes, I actually pulled the number. If the Twins sell for $1.5 billion, which seems to be kind of the low end expectation, they will have made their money 34.0909 in perpetuity times over. So if it goes for $2 billion, which is certainly possible. I mean, I'm no mathematician, but let's see here.
How much money you got in your pockets, Rod?
45.4545 million, or times if they get 2 billion. Yeah, that's an interesting point, because I think, especially if things continue to go sideways with Glenn Taylor, who knows? I mean, maybe they slide across Target Plaza and say, listen, A-Rod, we know you own the Twins on the field. Why not own them outright? As
I know what you're referring to there. You're referring to the postseason and other things. Yeah, where the Yankees have dominated the Twins. But It's too bad because the Pohlads, the family, should be the ideal owners for the Twins. They grew up here. They grew up fans of the team. They're very wealthy. They make their money from things other than baseball. One of the things about owning a baseball team is to maximize this boom and boon of franchise value. You have to sell the team and get money for it. That isn't to say that they can't make a decent amount. I think that's one of the things that's misleading a little bit about the Phil Miller story, is that he made it a point to say that, the Pohlads can only really make money when they sell the team. And I think that's only true to the bigger extent, but it's not like they're going poor owning the Twins. And I think that is a kind of a ridiculous thing to.
Couldn't you sell minority stock too if you wanted to recoup some of that investment? I mean,
it's not all liquid, but it's not all going to the players and the peanut vendors. I think we know that from lots of experience in Major League Baseball. But again, to kind of finalize my initial thought, this should be, the Pohlad kids, cousins, aunts, uncles, sons, daughters, they're in a position to own the Minnesota Twins. Let's go out there and win a World Series and not really worry about the money that much because we make it from other sources. And this is ideally what any fan base should want. Somebody who is not just in it to be a hedge funder, not just in it to make a buck, but to win. And maybe they just got tired of it. I have some other thoughts about why this is happening. We can get into that in a little bit, but it's too bad because I don't think, to find the Steve Cohen out there. I don't know if that person exists. Other teams have been sold, problematic teams, Oakland A's, Miami Marlins, and things have gotten worse with the new owners. So this is not going to be a panacea. This might be a bad thing. I don't know, but it's too bad that the Pohlads didn't work out because they should have been the best possible owners for the Twins.
I think the people who have said all along that the Pohlad family doesn't like baseball, I mean, I don't think you own a team if you have an outright distaste for it, unless you're really making money hand over fist. But I think to kind of do what they did in the last year, sell now, I don't know. I mean, I think it does lend some credence to this was a money business for them and they're concerned about money in the future. The broadcasting deal was I guess, I don't know. I feel like the timing just feels curious. Would that be fair?
Well, I think lots of people warned the baseball community about the TV bubble that was coming and the revenue that wasn't necessarily going to be flowing. This is for years, for 5 years, maybe a decade, maybe longer. The gravy train is going to stop at some point. And so maybe it is just the realization of the implosion of Bally Sports and Diamond Broadcasting and trying to make it on your own. And the initial returns on, one of the things that I thought was funny in Dan Hayes' story was pointing out how the TV deal that they had, it was going to be that they were going to get was going to be worse than the one that they already had, which already was one of the worst in the league. $54 million compared to some other teams' local deals, not so good, which makes me, wonder about who's negotiating these deals for the Twins and why aren't they getting the most out of the TV market? And, that goes back to the problems that they've had last couple of years, just getting the team on TV in the Twin Cities and how difficult it was to get them carried. And I think better business people could have solved that problem and made it a less of a headache for them. And maybe they wouldn't be feeling like they're in a position where they have to sell now because of the dried up market in local TV.
So watcher Andy Harding Pitt says, thanks for doing these. He's his first time watching. So yeah, he hopes that we're well. I would say I'm well. I hope you are too, Dave. Big day for Twins fans. Let's hope it's not going to be a case of better the devil, So I did say this, and we'll go to break after we discuss this, but think of the boost you are going to get from a PR standpoint when you buy this team and you simply are not one of the Pohlads. Like that to me, is the quintessential dead cat bounce.
Reading the history of the Twins, and it's kind of a funny history because only 2 teams have owned the franchise since 1919. the Griffiths and the Pohlads. So it hasn't changed. Going back to Washington, it hasn't changed hands very much. But when the Pohlads did buy the Twins, there was a kind of a relief on the part of fans because Calvin Griffith was seen as miserly. I believe it was put in the story that the Twins were his only source of income, and this is going to be different because they're diversified and they're local. Griffith came. I don't know what Griffith came from originally, but they brought the team from Washington. So people hope that it would be better, and for a little while and for a few times for a few periods it was, but it just it hasn't borne the kind of fruit I think that the Pohlads wanted, and now we're at a time when they've decided, I guess, collectively that they're getting out.
Well, let's take our first pause. When we come back, we'll try to do the who, what, why now, pros, cons, and all of that into the Twins being put up for sale here in the near future. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can go check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. That's right. We're talking about the FanDuel app. Go check it out. It's like having Red Zone on your iPhone. You just go check it out. You can see all of the data you need to make informed decisions before and during games. And by the way, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's right, guaranteed. So again, get your season started with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Just got to place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. And of course, we got to give some love to Gametime and their all-in pricing, my favorite feature. You got to get that Gametime app, or if you insist, go to gametime.co. That's .co. We love going to the live events this time of year. It's not as fun to be outside, especially if the Twins aren't playing. You can be inside. I know the Timberwolves getting started here soon. The Wild dropped the puck today. So that's going to be pretty exciting. Links in the WNBA finals. All kinds of stuff going on in Gametime is how you get there. Download the Gametime app. And again, if you're like me, toggle that all-in pricing feature. It will tell you exactly what you're going to pay at the end of your transaction. None of that bait and switch at the end where you think you're paying $20 and you get to the end and all of a sudden it says $50 and you have no idea how you got there. You're feeling very confused. Gametime does not want it to be that way for you. And those panoramic seat views, let me tell you, it's great knowing that when I'm going to the Target Center or XL Energy Center or Target Field, that I know exactly what my sight lines are going to be like. And that's because Gametime helps you out. Also, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference if you find the ticket cheaper elsewhere. That's their guarantee. That's their promise. And your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the game today. So take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Now, terms do apply. But again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Dave. So again, we're still kind of unpacking the notion that Joe Pohlad came out and said, I think we're going to sell this thing. What do you make of it being? Obviously, it's a family decision, but for them to do it 1 year after he kind of takes over the chairmanship, the big chair, so to speak, at Target Field, is there anything to be made of that, do you think?
Yes, but I don't know what exactly. I think one of the things, the dynamic of a family owning the team, it's the Giants don't have a family, but they have like a bunch of different investors. And I've always kind of wondered, obviously the biggest investor is running the family, but there's a lot of mouths to feed there. And I just think there's probably been a disagreement in the Pohlad family.
I hear you.
You can't hear me.
No, it's like you got unplugged or something.
It's a live show. Is that better?
Folks.
Is that better? Can you hear me now?
I can't hear a single thing you're saying, Dave. Nope, still nothing. You got to love live podcasting folks with this is. Oh, everybody else says they can hear you. Hey, I don't know why I can't hear you. Everybody else says they can. All right, now it says you're muted, Dave. Unmute.
Didn't do that.
Hey, there we go. I bet I tapped my speaker, and that's probably my fault. Anyway, the joy.
So the Pohlads are a family. Can you hear me now?
Yes, of course. This is like one of those old cell phone commercials. Yes,
and I think they just had a disagreement. It's not the oldest generation that's on the front line running the team, but still the money guys behind the curtain are the older. It's the dads and the uncles. It's not Joe necessarily. Yeah. So I think, honestly, what happened is there's a disagreement, and they're like, the heck with it. Let's just cash out. So it's to say that, the Pohlads are like any other family. You're not all going to get them to agree on the same thing. So for a while they had this thought to, let's run the team and whatever. But now the overarching people who are really in charge are over it, and they're ready to sell. And what's funny about this, we talk about the TV situation and the money for the revenue for local broadcasts. Not great, no matter how you look at it. What they had wasn't great. What they're doing right now isn't generating what it used to. But the Twins are in a really good spot with their lease at Target Field. It runs, I think, for another 15 years. Mm-hmm. And according to the journalists that I've read, it's a cheap lease. They don't have to pay a lot to play there. And it's that makes them, that's the thing that's going to make them very attractive to any owner and should make them attractive to the Pohlads. And I think that is sort of the linchpin for why the Twins fans have had to worry about in other seasons, the team being sold and moved or just moved to another city, Charlotte or whatever was. And of course, famously, Contraction was on the table with their own, and their own ownership was ready to do that. In fact, the patriarch of the Pohlad family was ready to just stamp the Twins out forever. I don't think they're anywhere close to being in a situation where Twins fans have to worry about the Twins moving to Nashville or Portland or Charlotte or anything like that. I think they are in Minnesota to stay, at least, through this lease. And I think, if you look at the history of how people have attended Twins games, that isn't a problem. They've drawn over 2 million. 3 million is the super mark, but 2 million is still pretty indicative of an area that can support baseball. And they've won a couple of World Series in the past 35 years, and it's shown itself to be, when conditions are right, a really good place to have a team and play. So I'm not going to say they ain't moving, but they're not moving.
Yeah, that's something that it's an interesting point by Luke Gaming, who's in the chat. Thanks for hanging out with us. The sale is a good and a bad thing because you never know. The new owners may move the team somewhere else. They may not. You never know. I feel like MLB right now is more likely to expand than they are to do any more moving. It took a very unique set of circumstances for the A's to move. And even then, they went kicking and screaming, at least from a fan base standpoint. And nobody is ever going to forgive Fisher for that. So
that's definitely an imperfect situation because they're in Sacramento, and I don't know how tenable that is. And I don't know how tenable Las Vegas is in the long term. If they're even going to get there, that's not 100% sure that they are. So, it's moving is not definitely going to be something that is happening anytime soon.
Okay, so talk me out of A-Rod owning this team with Mark Lowry if everything falls apart with the Wolves, because why not? I mean, they can still put their mark on something, a brand. Obviously, A-Rod's going to know baseball better than NBA. Maybe that is actually works against him in this case if owners don't like him, because obviously they have to ratify a new owner, don't they? I mean, you have to. The ownership,
they have to. Yes,
sports club that you have to be welcomed into, and so I don't know. Maybe Mark Lowry is the primary guy, and A-Rod just kind of comes in as a. Again, it wouldn't be like a Trojan horse because they'd see it coming because he's been in lockstep with him trying to buy the Timberwolves. I don't know, but if that were to happen, I mean, I could think of worse things than that.
I always thought it was I don't know, unusual that A-Rod was interested more in, and maybe this is his personal preference. Maybe this is because MLB owners, pushed back against him wanting to be one of their brethren. But I always thought owning a baseball team for him would make more sense than anything else. And it was funny to me that his first interest seemed to be uh, basketball. So, but he has, you know, lived in Minnesota or part of the year or whatever. He's made inroads. Uh,
He also lived in
that,
Minnesota during the worst months of the year. So, I mean, it's not like Minnesota in the winter is a breaking point for him.
yeah, he's not afraid to go outside in bare feet in the snow or whatever. Maybe I'm remembering Instagram wrong, but it seemed like there were posts like that. I don't have any idea if A-Rod wants to be a Twins owner or not, but it would seem natural to me that he would do it. And like I said, maybe the reason there wasn't an opening before, but now there is, and this shift by the Pohlads has caught lots of people who pay attention closer than I do by total surprise. Aaron Gleeman's like, sort of beside himself. He's like, this is not certainly what I expected. Talking to Joe Pohlad even a couple weeks ago about what the future was holding. So that's why I think there's good family dynasty stuff behind the scenes that we don't know about. Maybe the details will come out soon.
Well, let's take our last break. When we come back, we'll go over pros and cons. Payroll. I want to talk about payroll. That's going to be a huge question for fans wondering what that's going to look like here this offseason. So, yeah, we'll be right back. This episode of Locked On Twins is not for sale. It's brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball, or get that Booking.com app today. They got hotels, beds and breakfasts, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You just might find your perfect stay, even in your baseball rival city during the postseason. Maybe it's time to just try some of that fancy Detroit cuisine if Detroit moves on to the championship series, as I'm hoping they do. I don't know if I know anything that Detroit specifically identifies with food-wise. Dave, do you?
Well, they have a deep dish pizza that is square.
Yep. Well,
Coney, I mean, it's not in Coney Island, but Coney Island hot dogs are identified with Detroit. So I know, and there's a huge Greek community. So all that Greek food, that those are the things that I know about Detroit. It's not very much, but
Coney Island in Detroit and Oakland University in Detroit makes no sense to me. But hey, if you want to go check it out, Booking.com is the way to go. With Booking.com's wide variety of choice across the U.S., you can go incognito to all your favorite baseball cities. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your baseball rivals. That's Booking.com. Booking.yeah. So
lots of Muslim people in the Detroit area. So the other side of the Mediterranean, the food will be represented well. So I would imagine that's a good place to get hummus. And that's the first thing I think of every time.
I'm always game to try something different or just have an authentic version of something I've already had over here. So that sounds great. Maybe I will check out Detroit. Maybe not in the ALCS, but hopefully in the near future, thanks to Booking.com. Yeah, so everybody is going to want to kind of push the bear, poke the bear about payroll this offseason. And I think it's a tricky thing to navigate because this is already a front office that doesn't necessarily give out big, long contracts outside of Carlos Correa. And it's going to be a front office ownership group dynamic that's going to be curious because, I mean, maybe they will be more likely to spend money because it's not going to be them paying it. I honestly don't know. But I would really at least like to see them get back to where they were in 2023. And I don't think that's asking much. I don't think it's likely. It may not even be Snowball's chance in Hades, but I think that's a perfectly reasonable expectation.
Well, to bring this up again, it would have been nice for them to spend some short-term money on the 2024 team when they had opportunities.
No kidding.
When they had a very competitive team. We saw how the Twins were playing in May, June, July, whatever it was, when things were going well, what the team could have been, and they didn't do it. So therefore, fool me once, whatever. I'm not expecting them to give
Well,
a big outlay of money in
wait a
the
second.
coming months.
Does that tell
Yes.
you, though, that they probably knew this was coming? And by the way, let me backtrack on that. Does that mean they pushed the kid out front for a year to say, hey, you take the hit for all of us this year as we're preparing to sell? Because you're not going to, I don't think from a PR and business standpoint, you want to announce a sale during the season, because then imagine how the optics of that, knowing how the season ended, even if those two things were not related, would have been perceived. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
um,
sure. And it would have been like you're putting that in the play. I mean, just in the players' minds.
yeah,
Oh, we're sold, huh? As we're slumping here in September, that's a great thing to think about.
yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess they were thoughtful there that they didn't want to do it. I don't know if that was their
They just
motivation.
didn't say the quiet part out loud, I guess.
Yeah. I think I don't know if that is the actual chronology of what's happened, where they realized they were doing this earlier. Maybe Joe Pohlad was, I'm just guessing here. People are disagreeing in the family about what to do. And he's trying to say, well, no, let's compete for a while. And other people are like, we're never going to get better dollar than we are now. In fact, it's getting worse because the TV deal is coming to fruition and it's not good. So before it was sort of up in the air and maybe there was some uncertainty. Now we're certain we're not going to make as much money. So that's not good. So I don't know exactly what the chronology was of it, but it does make me upset that if they did think they were going to sell, and even if they've just decided now that they're going to sell, that they didn't make more improvements short term in the team while they had a competitor that needed some help down the stretch. It's it's disappointing to me, and I'm mostly dispassionate on this. I can only imagine what the fans are going through inside, thinking about a betrayal and feeling left out and sold down the river.
Here's a good question from Andy in the chat. Do you think there's a situation like the Angels where they may say they'll sell and then pull back, waiting to see what maybe the signups look like for the streaming service, et cetera, et cetera? Now, to me, that's kind of it makes sense, but that's pennies. That's looking at pennies versus dollars. Like, no matter what those subs look like, it's not going to change their mind in terms of the big picture. And so that's why I think probably
Right.
not. But there has been times where, there was a time where the Vikings were going to be owned by Tom Clancy, and the Twins were close to being sold to this guy or that guy, and obviously we're seeing it with the Wolves right now with Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez. I don't know. I mean, maybe Andy is onto something here. Maybe it's just a feeling out public process, but they couldn't even wait until the end of the World Series to do it too. Isn't that kind of funny?
Yeah, I thought there was an embargo on big stories until
Right.
after the World Series, but that's
Right.
And you did. I think A-Rod actually broke that at some point, didn't he? I don't know, but yeah, opting out of a contract. I remember. I only half remember, but speaking of A-Rod, to bring it full circle, it's the Angels. Artie Moreno was in a position to sell, and then he pulled back, and the talk was that he wasn't offered enough money, basically. So
Okay.
even though it might seem like pennies, maybe that extra 3 billion or 3 million makes a difference when you're selling.
Sure.
You don't become a multi-billionaire without worrying about those millions because they add up. I remember also it was put forth when Artie was trying to sell the team that maybe he pulled back because he was waiting for expansion fees. When Major League Baseball expands, the new owners pay the old owners. I don't remember how much money it is, $50 million, $100 million. And, they're waiting for that piece of the pie. That goes back to what you said before. Well, does that really make any sense when you're selling a team for $1.5 billion that you're going to worry about? I don't know if that's it. Maybe they just got tired of waiting and they need to be, whoever needs the money needs to be liquid now. So maybe their other businesses are going poorly as well. I don't know. So these are things that I don't know about. And it's just, like I said, it's too bad because the Pohlads the family should be the ultimate owners, the ultimate kind of owners for the Twins. And that appears to be ending.
It sounds like a commercial. I own a baseball franchise and I need cash now. Let's run just a little bit over here because we got some good questions coming in. as long as you're not strapped for time there, Dave. Kevin Hoffman says, do you think a sale will actually set the progress of the team back and that a new owner will want to assess what they bought and bring in their own personnel? I think it's a valid question, but I also think with how much, we've seen stability in owners. You talked about 2 owners in 100 years or whatever, 2 ownership families. We've seen it with managers. I think what they'll hope to find is stability in a ownership group that will be like, listen, we want to come in and, like when Falvey and Levine took over, they didn't fire all of Terry Ryan's guys. They kind of had a feeling out process and that sort of thing. And I guess I would hope that would be the case here. With that said, don't rule anything out. And again, too, like how long is it going to take to close on a sale? Like the odds of them closing on a sale before spring training, to me, don't seem that high.
No, it will take more months than there are before spring training. I think, maybe shortly after. Like I remember speaking of Artie Moreno, when he bought the Angels, he took them over the year after they won the World Series, I think. And that was like May or April when that happened. I don't know why I remember this, but that process had been going on for a while. So I think we're looking at maybe like 5-6 months, and there isn't that much time before the next season starts. So to answer Kevin's question, though, it totally depends. Will it set back their progress? It totally depends on the kind of person that they get, the kind of people that the owners that they get. It's a big deal to fire a manager. It's a huge deal to fire the front office. It could be a colossal deal to get a new owner if they want to bring in entirely new people. You just don't know what that new owner is going to want to do. And I think it's all a matter, how the continuity will depend on what the new owner wants. It's a kind of a non-answer, but I think that's the case.
A friend of the show, Ryan Lund, said they had this plan after the 2023 playoffs. And now I showed that earlier and then we didn't address it. But do you think there's some truth to that? Because if that was the case, why wouldn't you announce then? Because in the last year, certainly the way money has gone in terms of, things aren't losing value inherently, inflation, et cetera, but wouldn't you want to sell coming off a high like that? Or what am I missing?
Yeah, maybe. Again, it gets back to, we talk about they have plans. People within the Pohlad family may have plans, and other people might have different plans. So when you're coming off 2023, that's kind of a high. It's like, all right, maybe we're in position to win now. Now they didn't go out and spend like they were on the verge of making a World Series. They scaled back. So I just think there are lots of signs here that there are conflicts within the ownership group, within a literal family, about what to do. So some people had an idea about, the TV contract's coming to an end. This would seem like a natural time to get out. And I think that's fair from a business standpoint, that people would have that opinion. But again, it's not a monolith. There's going to be yins and yangs and pulling and pushing. And now I guess now it's time to cut bait. It's very possible that figures within the ownership group wanted to do this last season, and this was what they were going to do. And somebody persuaded them all to wait a year. Why, I don't know, to compete for a World Series and then only kind of half compete for it. Yeah. So maybe they just maybe we're giving them a little too much credit for knowing what they're doing. But, and so
did they sabotage it then? Like I like, is that a word you would use?
I mean, it was sabotaged. I don't know if that was their intention.
Like not
but
deliberate,
I think it was a half measure, that kind of thing. Maybe it was the wrong way to go. I don't know that.
Yeah. Makes no sense.
We're not talking about somebody, trying to implode the sale on purpose to make less money, but maybe there was a sabotage to get somebody else in charge of the family. Again, I'm just speculating wildly here. I don't know.
It certainly is a bad year to try and sell coming off, and makes you wonder if their forecasts are even bleaker yet. Which I think
it could have something to do with their other businesses.
Yeah,
those are worse
stuff. Yeah, as I had seen some people on Twitter saying maybe the writing should have been on the wall if they were flipping dealerships and stuff like that. Which I honestly, if I'm honest, was not paying that much attention to. But
Well, this
if
is
that
Locked On Twins, not Locked On Pohlads.
locked out Pohlads is what we're going to be.
Hey-o.
Anyway, Dave, thanks so much for taking the time, and really glad we could do this little, not necessarily impromptu. We were going to do an episode today anyway, but certainly fun to break down a little more of this big time news. And so again, rest assured, Minnesota Twins fans, the Pohlad family will make somewhere between 35 and 40 times what they spent on the baseball team. I know you weren't losing any sleep over
Well,
that.
thank goodness.
Yes. Praise all. Anyway, this has been Locked On Twins. By the way, thank you for making Locked On Twins your first listen today. For your second, make sure you check out Sully on Locked On MLB. He's getting you prepared for the Fall Classic and has it covered every single day. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. He is Dave Brown. I'm Brandon Warren saying thank you so much, and we'll see ya tomorrow night.
Unless the Pohlads sell us.
I don't want to think about that.